So here we are at Sea Otter at the Pivot Cycles booth, and we're going to be taking the Carbon Mach 5.7 out for a test ride.
We rode down the main concourse and out the back gate up toward the single-track loop outside the Sea Otter Fairgrounds. It was a gorgeous day in the low 70s, and we were stoked for some prime trail thrashing. It was going to be fun.
We ride up the paved road, paying attention to the trail access sign. I've for the last 3 years I've had a Ibis Mojo, the original nude carbon, and I love that bike. But technology moves on, so I've been thinking about a Pivot 5.7 carbon, Mach 5.7 carbon. So the interesting thing is the angles on the 5.7 are identical, or close to identical, particularly the head angle, which is 67.1, to the Firebird, which has another inch of travel. So essentially you're getting a very slack configuration, or at least slack by traditional standards, but that's all changing, as you can tell with the 5.7, because the angles are slacker, but it's still considered a cross-country aggressive trail bike. I have to say I'm really impressed with the climbing on the Carbon 5.7. The rear end is just rock solid stiff, and the angles are just right for me. So putting weight forward gives you just as much torque. You don't sacrifice any stability or steerage, and your full power seems to be going right into the pedals. So A+, certainly on the climbing. So we're going to head downhill now a little bit, see what we got. I'm not familiar with this trail, so I'm going to have to take it a little easier than I'd like, but hopefully we'll get a feel. There's also some wicked sand traps. Yeah, it's feeling pretty good. I am getting pretty far back in the saddle. That may come with a little more experience, get a little more centered, and certainly, it doesn't compare to the Firebird, which is what I'm used to, but you get a little lost on some of the sandbars or the water bars, and it's soaking it up real well. I mean, no problem there at all. Very stable bike, very stable ride. Nothing in the rear end washing around on you. Yeah, it feels, the word that keeps coming back to me is, this is such a stable bike, which is, what you want in any bike, but typically what you get is the bike gets heavier. This bike weighs in, the frame weighs in at 5.5 with the shock, 5.5, 5.75 pounds, so it's super light, and you normally wouldn't expect that kind of grounded stability in a frame this light, but that's what carbon does. Also have to hand it to Pivot's engineers. I think they've done some tweaks to really accentuate the stiffness as well as the stability, and so this is indeed the sight you like to see. Apparently endless single track. One of the things about carbon, I've been riding carbon for more than a decade, and one of the things about carbon is you want stiffness on the climbs and you want damping on the downhill, the bumps and everything else, and carbon does that better than anything else. It's extremely compliant that way. Now what they've done with the 5.7 carbon is that they've added stability to that mix as well, which means that your tracking is very true. You feel very comfortable on the bike, hitting corners, hitting sketchy stuff, loose rocks, downhill, stuff like that. Stability counts for so much of that. And even on climbing, you want stability because you don't want the front wheel wandering on you. And you want to be able to put your weight where you have full control on the rear end as well. And you see our friend climbing out of the canyon there. Looks pretty steep. He ain't going real fast, so we'll see how the Carbon 5.7 does on the climb out. Now, on the downhill side, the bike handles great. Does it handle as well as the Firebird? No. But I've got 235 tires on stomps on the Firebird. Yeah, I've got a 160 mil fork. The sag is a different configuration. The shock is a different configuration. It's a different bike. It's got an inch more to travel. So it's not fair to compare this to the Firebird. If you compare it to other cross-country bikes, I think it compares very favorably. It's not a rocket on a downhill because it's a lightweight bike, but it gets the job done, and again, it adds that measure of stability that gives you a real high comfort zone in terms of anything you're going to want to throw at it on the downhill side. Alright, we've made the big loop and now we're coming in the home stretch. I think I'm going to get one of these babies. That's always the proof of the pudding. Ask how many reviewers went out and bought the bike that they raved about. Well, you know, you can't buy 20 or 30 bikes a year, but in any case, this thing looks like a keeper. That is the sand. Woo! Woo! Sand. Woo! Always an adventure.
And so it came time to return the Mach 5.7 Carbon to the pivot booth at Sea Otter. Thanks to Brian and the gang for the chance to test the bike, and I hope you get a chance to stop by if you're at Sea Otter. Otherwise, hopefully this review has helped put you in the saddle of a new Mach 5.7 Carbon. It truly is a unique bike, advancing the state of the art and taking the all-mountain riding experience to a whole new level. Enjoy!